Hello and welcome to the Nano Film Improv podcast. I'm Dave Heron. This podcast is about my trials and tribulations associated with improv comedy and doing it, performing it, rehearsing it. So this is really a cathartic outpouring of the things that I've learnt, the things that I'm struggling with, and an opportunity to share with you and hear from you also some of the things that have worked for you, and equally there'll be some things on this podcast that you have tried that don't work for you. It's all very subjective. My experience level is, well, I've had a few years experience doing improv. I've taught a bit of improv. I've performed with a whole range of exciting and talented improvisers and learnt from sets that have gone well and sets that haven't gone well. And this is all part of an evolution for me as well. So you're very welcome in joining me on this podcast. So this week I want to talk about improv and the links it has, I think, to meditation. And this came about because I've talked recently about just really enjoying living in the moment in improv scenes. And then I had a bit of a realization that that is exactly what I try and do when I meditate each day. So for those who know, or don't know, or don't care, I have been doing meditation for about the last 3 years or so, and I do a little bit in the morning before I get up, and I do a little bit in the evening before I go to bed. And what it has brought me is an increased awareness of the self. Now, what does that really mean in practice? Well, it certainly doesn't mean I'm calmer as a result of doing meditation. No, it means I become very consciously aware of how I am feeling. So if I'm feeling particularly stressed or indeed particularly happy, I'm more likely to kind of be present in those emotions as well and realize how they make me feel, as opposed to just getting completely locked up in the emotion, not thinking about it. It's also been very, very helpful for me just spending a small amount of time each day, not thinking about the past or the future, what I'm doing later that day, and just really thinking about myself, how my body feels, how I'm feeling mentally as well. And I just thought that has a huge, in my opinion, a huge nexus to what I am trying to do in improv scenes. And that's really kind of stay in the moment, not think about sort of planning, etc. And I just thought I'd raise that today as a bit of a thought thing, and whether it had helped me or not, I can't really put my finger on it. What I can tell you is that in my day-to-day life, I'm very, very consciously aware now, more than I ever have done in my life before, about the way that I feel. So actually, when I'm feeling an emotion, I'm consciously aware that I'm feeling anger or feeling upset or feeling happy, love, whatever. I'm in that zone and I'm aware of exactly how I'm feeling rather than just kind of going away with it and oblivious to that. And that, as I say, is something that I've been striving to do in many, many improv scenes at the moment. That's kind of where I'm wanting to go to at the moment, I think. And good listeners of mine, regular listeners of mine, will have identified that trend of the last few episodes or so, where what I'm trying to do is not plan anything, but actually really kind of live in the moment. And some of those are the best scenes where they're almost effortless. I'm just thinking about how I feel as a character, as an improviser as well, but as a character, and how that moment with the other improviser and the other character on stage feels too. So that's really kind of the essence of today. It's really trying to focus on the moment, trying to do less planning and trying to sort of understand examples where that came about. And I wanted to share that with you, things in the past which have not gone so well for me and things that have recently kind of gone a bit better for me because I'm focusing in the moment. So one of the big things I've spoken about before is narrative. And I find with narrative that sometimes, if I haven't done it for quite a while, so narrative improv where you're trying to tell a plot and you're trying to follow a structure, I find that quite difficult if I haven't done that form of improv for quite a while, because I then come out of my head and I'm thinking, right, okay, I think the next scene needs to be about this, or that character is feeling a certain way. Maybe that's what happens later on in the scene, rather than just absorbing myself in it. Now, I know a lot of improvisers do enjoy that planning, and so this isn't a case of me saying that is the wrong way to do improv. Just to remind us, me, you, everyone else. What I'm really interested right now is absorbing myself in the scene and not thinking about the planning, which of course is what meditation is about. Meditation really is about focusing on the moment, as I said earlier on, rather than thinking what I've got to do later today or tomorrow. So that's a good example where I have noted myself in the past, taking myself out of the moment of the scene and into something else. And that's happened a lot in many narrative things that I've tried to do. Unless I've been doing it quite regularly, then I tend to fall into the planning mode. However, as I've said before, when I've worked with some wonderful improvisers in the obscene, formerly known as Slapbot, I just tend to just ride the wave there, to be honest with you. I let other people plan it if they want to. And if I just so happen to ride the wave that they're planning, then so be it. But I try to absorb myself and try to have fun. So that's one thing that's definitely helped me. And I've said it's just made me love the magic of forming these relationships between the characters on stage. When you're absorbing yourself in the moment and you're thinking about how you feel, and a real passion between characters. Either you really hate that character or whether you really love that other character. Just being in that moment. And meditation, without shadow of a doubt, has allowed me to focus, zone out those other things and really focus and listen. It's basically given me 100% attention to the other person in the scene. And that, for me, is a really, really positive experience when it comes through. Other things that have kind of taken me out of my comfort zone in the past is other people's boundaries. And what I've realised, and I've talked about this before, I guess, under the sort of auspices of Comic Connection, is if I've got a certain set of physical and indeed sort of, I guess, mental boundaries, and by that I mean sort of topics being spoken about, and they don't align with other people, that in itself brings me out of my head. So I've done many scenes before with people where beforehand I knew that their boundaries were perhaps more, I guess, prohibitive than mine. That makes me sound like a sort of real pest, doesn't it? What I mean is people who, for example, are not comfortable with arm touching, which is absolutely fine. But because I'm consciously thinking that I don't want to offend them as a person, that brings me out of my head, and therefore I'm not able to absorb myself fully in the scene. And that goes, I think, back to what I spoke about previously around the comic connection of finding the right people in your group. I think physical boundaries and mental boundaries and having them the same are so important so that you can absorb yourself in the scene. That's not to say that I've done bad scenes with other people who haven't had the same boundaries as I have. No, I've done some absolutely excellent scenes. It's just one thing that I've noticed, that I tend to take myself out of the scene because I really want to make sure that the other person is very comfortable indeed with me. So that's another thing that meditation has, I guess, kind of helped me with and made me think about a little bit more as well. Another example linked to that is I recently did a scene with Emily Joy as part of We Are Dave at the Lambeth Fringe. And in the show, I had very sweaty hands. My character didn't, I did. And came up in a scene as well around having sweaty hands. And just for a moment, it caught me off guard as a person. But what was great is Emily's character just kind of went through it, and we embraced the kind of sweatiness of the scene into our scene as well, made that about a nervous energy within the scene between the two characters. And so that was really nice to kind of bring it from something there I suddenly felt very physically conscious by holding another person's hand in the scene, to moving outside of my head and then bringing it back into the scene again as well. So that was something which was really, really positive and allowed, and it was just a great example actually of the other improviser, a wonderful, wonderful improviser, telling me, don't worry Dave, just be comfortable in this scene. It was really lovely and made me feel, well, a character again rather than an improviser. So that's the sort of thing that I've been kind of thinking about a lot recently. Just sort of 2 or 3 examples, but how I found that meditation has really been helping me keep focus in the scene, really listening to what the other person's saying, rather than thinking about, oh, that could be a funny thing, or heard something there. Another example was recently, we were in a rehearsal, a We Are Dave rehearsal, and we were doing an exercise at the beginning where we were just describing a painting that we were looking at. And Lewis Hill, who's a very, very good friend of mine, as well as is Emily, who I didn't mention that before, but I feel I should mention that as a good friend of mine. He described something in the scene, in the painting, as a character, and then as he walked away from the painting, he just said very flippantly something along the lines of, "But the artist was a bit drunk anyway," as a sort of almost a throwaway line that almost got missed. But because I've been listening and the meditation has helped me with the listening, I actually almost fixated on that very last line, and that became the thing that became, I guess, kind of painted the rest of that picture, so to speak. So that drunken comment, or that comment, not drunken comment, he wasn't drunk. That comment about the artist being drunk was taken and absorbed into something else we were building as well. So they're just really lovely examples where it's just helped me be a better listener on stage. It's helped me think a lot more in the moment, in the present, how I feel as a character and how the other person might feel as a character, rather than trying to plan every sort of, eventuality that might happen in the improv set. And that's in itself has made me more comfortable. Again, I've talked before about trusting the process. That's made me feel more comfortable in trusting the process and trusting how my character feels in that moment. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I wonder whether you also do meditation. Has it helped you if you do meditation at all? Have you tried meditation and it doesn't help? I'd love to know how you've thought about other sort of practices that you have, maybe breathing, maybe listening. There's a lot of things, certainly in martial arts, around Qigong, which is a breathing exercise. Maybe in some of the chakras and how you sort of think about those sorts of things as well when one thinks about holistic therapy. I'd love to know what sort of things you've taken from elsewhere and maybe applied them in improv scenes as well, and whether that's helped you become an improved improviser. So thanks very much for listening to the Nano Film Improv podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one.